Afternoon. We'll do a quick recap on this past weekend. I think what I'd like to just point out is, you know, consistency, takes its, shape in many ways. For us, it's been, a football team that has had to do a lot of things differently. And with that comes blind faith. And I told our team I was really proud of the way they have just embraced change. It's hard. It's hard for everybody to change. And so I've been really proud of the way they have embraced change and done the things that we've asked them to do to become more consistent on a day-to-day basis and within our process and their preparation and their mindset, their habits, the way they think, and we've been able to make the progress necessary to have a modest winning streak, and this is modest. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. This month will tell us a lot, right? We've got an SEC slate in front of us over the next 4 weeks, which will challenge us to a new level, and we'll certainly find out even more about our grit and what kind of football team this will continue to grow to be. We know where our issues are. It's a team that will fight, but we're thin in some areas, and so we've got to make sure we keep our team rested. We've got to stay away from injuries, things of that nature. But there's no doubt about the fight. These guys will fight for the right reasons, and I just wanted to make sure that from my perspective that this win this past weekend against the New Mexico team was significant in that we built some consistency with a group that has been willing to follow a whole new pattern, and it's been enjoyable. Now we get into, obviously the SEC over the next month. 2 games on the road, 2 at home, and we begin with Auburn. I think the first thing is that, routines will stay the same other than we're going to get on a plane. But, we'll be in a stadium that will not be pro LSU. The first month of the season it was pro LSU for the most part. So now the enemy is distractions. And so we'll have to do a great job of not being distracted, to be focused on making sure that our guys are locked in on what's important. And we'll work on that skill this week, as well as, the preparation that we've had all year. Auburn has some talented football players. Offensively, both backs are outstanding. Bigsby obviously is a 3-year starter, over 2,000 career rushing yards, 19 touchdowns. I think that's kind of, for us, when we're watching film, the running backs are outstanding players. Ashford at quarterback started last week against Missouri. He too is a great runner. That's going to be our biggest concern is to keep him in wraps in terms of running the football. He's very capable. He's a transfer from Oregon, extremely gifted athlete, and again, I think from our perspective, a guy that can throw it, but more importantly, a dual threat quarterback that is dangerous running the football. Outstanding receiving core. And a defense that has, a guy that's a game wrecker in Derek Hill. He's a guy that you're going to have to find. We'll have to game plan and make sure we know where he is. Riley, outstanding linebacker. And again, a football team that's playing at home, coming off its SEC win against Missouri in overtime. It'll be a great challenge for a football team. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Right in the middle.
Yes.
You mentioned Ashford at quarterback. Do you expect Ashford to start, or are you going to prepare for multiple quarterbacks this week?
I think you always have to keep an eye on, whether Finley plays as well. Certainly, he gives you, the throwing end of things. So we'll have to prepare for both. We don't have any firsthand information that one's playing over the other, but we'll be prepared for either one.
Brian, down here at the bottom, just any injury updates? I mean, Jaden, is he still feeling okay? And then Armani and Jay Ward as well.
Yeah, Jaden, no residual effect from Saturday. He'll be able to practice. Let's see, Jay Ward feeling really good. I think he's a go for Tuesday. We'll probably limit his workload on Tuesday, but he should be able to go. Amani, it'll be a day-to-day situation with him.
Just right in the middle, Coach. Just wondering what prompted your opening remarks there. Were you pleasantly surprised by kind of their focus, I guess, for lack of a better word, and your ability to kind of coalesce everything?
Well, I think it was important to point out that, in anything that you do, right, when there's change, it requires a commitment. And even though this is a modest winning streak of 3 games, it should be noted that these guys are doing everything possible to make sure that LSU football regains its place. And they're working really hard at it. But there's still a lot of work ahead of us. So I just wanted to make sure that it was duly noted that there's going to be some tough days ahead of us, and we're going to have to grind through it. But they are giving us all that they have.
Brian, I mean, just considering, you're switching guys, Jay Ward and Greg Brooks, and you've had guys out with injuries. Now Joe's back this week. I mean, what has the challenge been, or maybe not at all, of just kind of the constant movement in that back end?
You would like a little bit more continuity. I think Matt, Carey have done a really good job of communicating what we need to do back there, and I think it's going to be a little bit easier, with a Joe Fouché in terms of he's an experienced player. So it was a little bit more difficult when we had to move Jarek back there because you didn't have an experienced safety. So, as we move forward now with Jay Ward probably coming back this week and being healthy and getting Joe, you've got experience back there. So in one instance, you would like a little bit more continuity, but on the positive side, with Brooks, Fouché, and Jay Ward, you've got experience.
Hey, Coach, here in the middle. The hurricane appears to be heading towards Florida and hopefully not in the path of your game, but is it something you're going to have to monitor, your officials obviously watching throughout the week? Yeah,
no doubt, Jock. We've talked about a game plan in terms of what it might look like. Hopefully that's going to pass through. We're going to get probably some rain of some kind, and that'll be our first time in that kind of element. It's a grass situation, so you put those plans together relative to what that would look like if, in fact, we did get hit with some severe rain.
Yeah, Brian, right here. How big was the New Mexico game for Jaden Daniels and his growth? I mean, what did you go back on the film and see that and the game was obvious. He was determined to stay in the pocket, but what did you go back and look at film? What did you see?
There are a couple things. Decisiveness is starting to be part of the vocabulary instead of being hesitant, and that comes with knowledge of the offense. I think the other thing is that he has become a lot quicker in his setup. I think I mentioned this, quick feet, but slowing down and not rushing through progressions. I think one of the bigger plays in his development was the dig that he threw to Jere Jenkins in the red zone. That was his 4th receiver through a progression. Those are the kind of things you're looking for in terms of development of a quarterback, and we're starting to see that, as well as the screen to Malik Neighbors, how quickly that ball comes out. So I think a little bit of everything was coming together, and the word I would use is just he's becoming more comfortable and more decisive.
Brian in the middle. Not to harp on the open again, but you seem pleased. Is this team better through 4 games than you thought they'd be, or are you pleased with the progress over a month?
I guess the setup was we're going to find out now. This first month was kind of like let's put this together, and the preface was, these guys have worked really hard to do exactly what we've asked them to do. They've put themselves in a position. They have, followed a process, and they've been consistent with it. Now we're going to have to apply it to the SEC, and that is a step up. So the next month, there's going to be some good days and there's going to be some bad days, and they cannot, try to do things differently. When it's like anything else, the old, Mike Tyson line, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth, right? I mean, we're going to have to stick with our plan and stick with our process every single day, and because we're going to get hit in the mouth. And we're going to have to trust it and keep going. And I guess that was the preface that I was trying to make.
Coach, going back to what you were saying about weather, just how do you manage a game where the playing conditions can be affected by something like that? And especially, with a team where you do like to pass the ball up.
I've been in two remnants of hurricanes, one at North Carolina State, which was abysmal, and I think the other one was at Clemson, and they affect the game conditions. And so you have to plan accordingly in terms of your passing game, running game. Kicking game is affected dramatically, field position, tactically, how you call a game. You just have to wrap your head around it, prior to and prepare for it. And then, quite yourself, and, those are technical things that we can clean up. But he's got a great mindset for his PATs and field goals, so I have 100% confidence in him. All right? Thank you. Appreciate it. Frankly, you have to react accordingly during the game. I'm not making too much of it. I'm not going to put it too much on our players. Our players just need to play, and as coaches, we'll adapt accordingly during the game.
All right, Coach. How would you grade Jack Besh's performance as a punt returner on Saturday?
Fearless. We'll work on a couple of things where fearless shouldn't be always the number one criteria of returning punts. We want some decision-making in that as well. But that's how Jack plays, right? I mean, he's at his best when he's not worried about any factors other than competing and getting the ball in his hands, and it's fun to watch, right? I mean, that's just the kind of player he is. But you can see what kind of impact he can have in our punt return game. And look, and the trickle down is the other 10 guys, they want to block for him. And that is an added incentive when you have a punt returner that can break it. It adds a great energy to the entire group.
Coach, you're on the right. You mentioned Joe Fuchsia's experience. Is the reality that he wasn't hurt and that he only missed a few games, does that lend you being able to lean on him for starters reps right away? And kind of how's he looked in practice? That's kind of one thing Greg Brooks talked about, is that he's gotten a lot of time in practice to get ready.
Yes, he's been actively involved. I think the plan has been excellent. He's been involved in any articulation between our offense and defense that hasn't involved game plan, which is quite a bit. Every day we'll have some 11-on-11 work where there is no, hey, we're getting ready for New Mexico or getting ready for Mississippi State. He's involved in that. So he's in our defensive structures. When we start to, over the past month, when we got ready for team time for our opponent, he would come over on the scout, and he was a pain to deal with because he was so good playing so hard as a scout team member that he made us better. So I've been able to firsthand see his action on a day-to-day basis, and he'll be ready to play right away.
Are you expecting Kayshawn back for this game?
Yes.
And then just the general thought that each week we've talked about you wanting to get the ball to someone specifically, right? Get them involved. You have such a deep and talented receiver room. When does it become forcing an issue?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And so I think there was only one time that I really alluded to the fact that after week one that we needed to get him going a little bit. Other than that, I think we have to be able to let the game come to these guys naturally. We've moved some guys around, obviously. You saw Neighbors into the short field, playing the W, and you saw Jack playing, the slot a little bit more. Other than moving guys around a little bit, I think that's all you'll see from a manipulation standpoint. Other than that, the offense has got to come to you, and when you get your opportunity, you got to make plays because there's so much depth there.
Hey, Brian, I think at the end of camp you talked about Harold Perkins and that he had a little bit of ways to go. Seems like he's flashing more and more. How did you think he performed the other night in a starting role?
Look, here's the thing with Harold. He's going to flash because of his skill set. I mean, he is twitchy. He is fast. He has all of those tools that are going to allow him to show. And then Matt's doing a great job of keeping it in the easiest form within the defense. We can't give him – he's just gotten here. So to give him the entire playbook is not fair to him. So Matt's given him pieces of the playbook that allows him to go play fast because that's his best trait. But he's learning, and I'll tell you what, he's so coachable. That's the great part about it. He comes to the sideline. He wants to know what he needs to do better each and every snap. So we're really pleased with his progress, but I think what we're more pleased with is what he's doing off the field, in the classroom, and then how coachable he is.
Hey, Coach, what do you think about the offensive line just over the last 2 games and how they're able to provide holes in the running game for your running backs these last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it was, our banner day this past weekend. That's a tough defense. They're standing up. They're moving around. There's so much movement. O-linemen want to know that what they see they're going to hit, and that wasn't the case on Saturday. The guy in front of you wasn't going to be there on the snap of the ball, and that takes a little bit of, I would say, the aggressiveness away from your offensive line. We won't have that this weekend. They're going to have to put their hand in the dirt. They're going to have to get off the ball. They're going to have to move people against their will. And I think you'll see a good indication over the next month of this offensive line really having to get after it.
Right here. Now that it seems like with Joe coming back here, but most of these academic issues and things are getting people eligible behind you. Has this been frustrating for you? Is there anything that needs to change in terms of preparing players or working with transfers to get them eligible faster? Because it seems like it's an unusual situation.
Yeah, I think those are all things that we can address at the end of the year. There are things that Joe could have done better. Maybe there are things that we can do institutionally. We can always look at that, but that's not for now. I mean, we'll take care of those things and have good discussion about what we can do better. And like I said, it's always, the student athlete that is responsible at the end of the day. But, yeah, those are discussions that we can have at the end of the year.
Brian, with Charles Turner at center now for a few games, how would you evaluate the way he's played? And I guess where's your confidence level with him as he starts to face some bigger guys on the opposite side?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good question. First of all, he's a great communicator. He knows what he's doing up front. He is getting people in the right place. But it's going to get harder. It's going to get harder. The competition is going to be such that he's going to be in the mix each and every week. So he knows, and he's up for the challenge. But again, I think we're putting him in a situation where he's got 2 guards next to him that are big guys, big physical guys. And the center is always working in combinations. So, most centers today are not, the biggest. They're usually the smartest, and they're usually guys that can move, and Charles can do those things for us.
Hey, Coach, we recently went to Gina, Louisiana, where all 4,000 people in the town have number 10 jerseys. And
yeah, I'll bet.
love Jure, and he's impacted adults, kids, gives them hope to get out of a small town and whatnot. Just you being around him, what kind of person is he? I've never heard anyone say anything negative about him.
Well, first of all, I'm proud of the fact that he got his degree, because there was a time there where he was considering going to the NFL and he would not have had his degree. So I think, from that perspective, making the decision to come back and get his degree and then play in this season, that stands out, to me. I think the other thing is that, he's gone about this year in a manner that I think can be modeled for all of our other guys. A veteran guy that has done everything we've asked him to do, and had never been a special teams player, but now is involved in special teams, is doing the other jobs, and is quietly put together as a consistent performance as any player that we've had on this team. So I just think the maturity that he's shown in the decision-making, as I mentioned earlier, as well as being able to model him based upon doing other jobs and being selfless has been, we can really push him out front and say, look how Ten's doing it.
You mentioned Ashford's maneuverability.
Yeah.
Does having Jaden and having your team have faced him, I guess, in fall camp provide some muscle memory in your preparation, or how do you go about that preparation?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be interesting this week. Well, not interesting, but, they run a very similar defense. So we'll go against each other quite a bit this week. And like last week, we didn't go against each other very much because the defenses don't match and the offenses certainly didn't match. This week, we'll go ones versus ones quite a bit this week because there's so much carryover, and we'll be able to keep the speed up with a Jaden going against our defense or their defensive structure with, having, B.J. Ojolari at Jack like their Jack. So there'll be a lot of carryover where we're able to go against each other and really assimilate that game speed from both sides.
Yep.
Two more.
In the middle, Coach.
Yes, sir.
At Notre Dame, you obviously played in road venues all over the country.
Yes.
A couple of years ago, you played at Georgia. Have you been in other SEC venues, and just what were your impressions of being a visitor in an SEC venue?
Yeah, the Georgia atmosphere was terrific. It didn't finish the way I wanted it to. When I was at Central Michigan, I played at Kentucky. And I don't know that Kentucky's program was at where it is with Coach Stoops today. But when you're at Central Michigan and you play in an SEC environment, it's all big, at that point. So those are I believe, the SEC venues that I've been in. But, like I said, I've played in so many different venues that capture your attention. Just excited about the challenge of playing at Jordan Hare.
Coach, how would you evaluate, going into next week? Is Damian Ramos still you have full confidence in him to be your kicker?
I have full confidence that he will be our field goal extra point kicker. You saw that we went and made a change on kickoffs. And that might be the case. I haven't made that decision yet. I'll talk to Brian as the week goes on, because that obviously impacts a red shirt situation. So we'll see how that plays out during the week, but I have the utmost confidence in his ability. There's some technical things that he has to clean up. He gets a little bit too fast to the ball on his kickoffs, gets his shoulders over him.